So good evening, everyone who I can't see out in Zoom land. I'm Nancy Dufford. I'm the Executive Director for PEN, the Pasadena Education Network, and I want to thank you for joining us at our Navigating Open Enrollment program. Even though we're not in person, I am going to acknowledge that our program director, Susan Schwartz, and our Parent Engagement Director, Laura Diaz-Allen, are both with us tonight. And if you don't see them tonight, hopefully at some point you'll have an opportunity to meet them in person. And I also want to thank Jeff Albert and Collaborate Pasadena for hosting our program this evening. If you learn anything tonight, I hope that you will consider making a donation to PEN, and you can do that on our website. The first thing I just want to mention is that we are only going to be talking about open enrollment in PUSD. That does not include the charter schools. So if you have questions about their enrollment process, I encourage you to contact them. I also would like to encourage you not to type your questions into the chat until we're finished with the presentation. We've tried to incorporate the questions that you submitted in advance into the presentation, so hopefully we'll cover a lot of information, so hang in there with us. Okay, so let's start with, why is this not moving? It's not going to the next. Hang on, I just checked this and it worked, and now it's not.
If you you mouse over down in the lower left corner of the screen, sometimes the arrows appear when you're kind of mousing over them. Yeah, over your cursor.
I don't know where that. Oh, that's okay. Fine. Okay, so here are our eligibility dates. So if your child is going to be entering transitional kindergarten, they need to turn 5 years old between September 2nd and April 2nd. Kindergarten, you can see the date here. They need to turn 5 by September 1st, and first grade, 6 years old, on or before September 1st. I know a lot of parents ask about if they have a child who by their age should be entering first grade, but they have held them back and would like them to start in kindergarten, what are they supposed to do? I will tell you that the open enrollment application will not allow you to select first grade if your child's birth date, they will not allow you to select kindergarten if your child's birth date falls into the first grade area. What PUSD encourages you to do is select your first grade, and then once your child is placed at a school, that you then discuss with the principal and the teacher your desire to have your child start kindergarten. If you adamantly do not want to do this, you can contact Dr. Shannon Malone at PUSD. She oversees elementary education, and discuss with her why you believe your child should be in kindergarten rather than first grade. So transitional kindergarten students may participate in open enrollment going forward. So you can attend a TK program that is not your assigned neighborhood school, or you may enroll in the Spanish or Mandarin TK programs. Next year, there will be 7 TK programs, and you can find the link for the locations and more information on PEN's website under the schools and early childhood education. Now you'll see that Spanish TK will be moving to Longfellow next year. This year it is at Jefferson. Mandarin TK will be at Field, and there will be an Armenian TK program at Webster. there will not be a French TK program. Once your child is accepted into a TK program through open enrollment, you do not need to go through open enrollment for kindergarten. So you can stay at that school then for kindergarten and through your 5th grade experience. Now, if you are in Spanish TK, this is the one exception, because there is one location for Spanish TK, but there are 3 locations for kindergarten, elementary. For Spanish, you do need to participate in open enrollment if you want to attend Jackson or San Rafael. If you want to continue at Longfellow, you do not need to participate in open enrollment. Okay, hope that's clear. So this year, if you have a student who is at Jefferson TK in Spanish, you will need to participate in open enrollment. And in order to guarantee a placement in Spanish kindergarten, you need to select all 3 schools, Jackson, Longfellow, and San Rafael. Now, you may want to know, how will the district know that you are already enrolled in Jefferson's Spanish TK program? They actually will manually go through the applications and make sure that all the TK students do get placed in a kindergarten TK program if you select all 3 schools on your open enrollment. Hope that's clear, but if it's not, ask at the end and I'll try to clarify. Now, some of you may decide that you want to go to your school of residence and you do not need to participate in open enrollment. But if you want to go to a school that is not your neighborhood school, you may submit an application for any of the schools in the district. But before that, we encourage you to visit your neighborhood school and see what's happening there. Most families in our community do attend their neighborhood school, and you just might find that it's the right fit for your family. If you don't know what your neighborhood school is, you can find PUSD school locator on Penn's website or on the district website. Now, to give you an example of what it looks like, I've entered my address on the form, and then you'll see it shows me what my neighborhood school for elementary is, and middle and high school. And it also shows that I live in the Marshall Secondary School neighborhood preference. And in a few slides, I will explain to you what a neighborhood preference is. Okay, so which schools are right for your family? I'm going to assume that if you're in this meeting tonight, that you've been to Penn's website, you've seen all the information that is available to help you make your decision. But in case you haven't, you'll find fact sheets about each PUSD school, parent contact information, so you can talk with parents whose children attend our schools, school tour dates, and more. But please keep in mind that there is no one right school for every family, because every family has different priorities, values, and needs. You may prioritize a special program or the arts or sports, science, school size, or diversity differently than your friends do. Or you might need a school that has a late start or has a specific after-school program. So it's really important for you to figure out what's important for your family so you can identify the best schools for you. If you decide to attend your assigned neighborhood school, good for you. And you can actually register now for your neighborhood school on the PUSD website. But if you think that there are other schools that are a better fit for your family, then you can participate in open enrollment. So what exactly is open enrollment? It's the school choice random lottery process when families can submit an application to attend a school that is not their neighborhood school of residence. In order for your child to enroll in a dual language immersion program or Marshall Fundamental Secondary School, you must participate in open enrollment. So even if you live right next door to one of the dual language immersion program schools or Marshall, you still need to participate in open enrollment. Current fifth grade students who will participate in the Advanced Math Academy also need to submit an open enrollment application if they want to attend one of the Math Academy programs, if it's not at their assigned school. So for example, if you don't live in the McKinley, Sierra Madre Middle, or Octavia Butler Middle School areas, and you want to attend Math Academy, you need to go through open enrollment and list those schools in your order of preference. Typically, students enter the dual language immersion program at kindergarten, but this year, families will have the option to submit an application for a dual language program at an upper grade if their student is fluent in the native language and if they've been attending a dual language program in another district. So that is a change for this year. So we encourage you, if your child is fluent, or if you're attending a DLIP program in another district, that you can submit an open enrollment application. Now, what about the magnet schools like the arts or STEM or STEAM? So if your neighborhood school is arts, STEAM, STEM, or the International Baccalaureate program, you can register online for that school. You do not need to go through open enrollment. You only need to submit an open enrollment application if they're not your assigned school, or if you want to participate in the dual language immersion program that is located at a magnet school. So for example, if Altadena Arts is your assigned school, and you want to attend the French program, you will need to submit an open enrollment application. But if you want to attend Altadena Arts and participate in the Arts Magnet program, you do not need to submit an application. You know, sometimes I feel like this sounds so confusing, even though it might not be. So how does the open enrollment lottery process actually work? Well, after winter break, PUSD will post projections for the range of available seats at each school for each grade level. You'll be able to list every school that you prefer to your assigned neighborhood school on your open enrollment application. Your assigned neighborhood school will actually not appear on the open enrollment application that you will complete. So if your question is, what school should I put first? The answer is the school you want to attend the most. There is no way to game the system, since you can list every school that you prefer to your assigned school of residence. If you are completing an application for twins, they should have separate applications, but the schools should be listed in the same order. If you fill out two applications and the schools are in the same order, when one student gets accepted, the other student will get pulled in and will automatically get the same placement. So here's how the lottery works. Let's say you're number 10 in the lottery. Your application will be the 10th application that will be placed. The system will try to place you in your first choice, second choice, and so on. until one of your choices has space for you. If every school you've listed is full, you'll be placed at your neighborhood school. Then you'll be notified of your placement, and the information will also be available on the Open Enrollment webpage. So after you receive your placement, you'll have the option of accepting your placement and going to the second lottery to try to get a higher preference school, or registering at the school where you were placed. You'll also have the option to decline your placement, and if you do nothing, you will be withdrawn from the open enrollment process. If you want to try for a higher preference school in the second lottery, you will not lose your first lottery placement. You also don't reapply, as you will keep the preference list that you submitted in the first lottery. If you don't register and don't notify PUSD that you want to accept your placement and advance the second lottery, you will automatically be withdrawn from the open enrollment process. So please be sure that you select that you want to accept your placement and go to the second lottery. Now, last year, we actually had a copy of the application that we were able to show you, but we don't have that this year. So this is a sample of what we expect that it will look like. And this is taken from what was used during the priority enrollment. So we expect it will be similar. So this is what your dashboard will look like. It will say welcome, and then it will have your name. Then we'll have your name. In this case, Carla is the mom and Emma is the student. And it says underneath that one application was submitted, so that it confirms that you submitted an application. At the top, you'll notice that there is a link that says messages. At any time after you've submitted your application, if you go onto your dashboard and select your messages, it will show you all of the emails that were sent to you. So that way, if you're not sure that you missed something, you can go in and check your messages. This is a sample of what your actual placement will look like. But because open enrollment hasn't been run yet, we couldn't show you an actual application. So this is for Jack. He was submitted an application and was accepted to Octavia Butler Magnet. So you'll see you have an option to withdraw, decline, or accept. If you want to continue, if you want to accept the placement and register, or if you want to continue to the second lottery, then you will click on the accept button. The district has also told us that they will send explicit instructions when you are accepted, because we couldn't show you specifically tonight what it would look like if you had more than one school. And this is an example of what the email will look like that you will receive. And it will have the link again where you can go to accept or decline your placement. Now, the date will obviously be different than this one, because this was what happened during priority enrollment. Okay, now what is the second lottery? So after the first lottery is completed, principals will reevaluate the number of seats that are available. They will readjust that number. And that will be based on how many students registered from their neighborhood or from the first lottery. So those numbers can oftentimes change. So families, again, who want to try for a higher preference, if you're not placed in your first choice school, can participate in the second lottery. And if for some reason you miss the first lottery, you can also submit a second lottery application between March 6th to March 10th. And then once again, families will be assigned a number based on the random lottery, and then receive a placement. For families who already participated in the first lottery, their second lottery placement will either be for the same school they were offered originally or for a higher ranked school. So you won't lose your spot at your first placement. And then after being notified, families will register at the school where they were placed or at their neighborhood school. And then you will remain on a wait list for your higher preference school. But in order to remain on the wait list for your higher choice schools, you must register where you were placed. So that's a difference from the first lottery. After the second lottery, you do need to register. Now, families are notified as spaces become available at their preferred schools until the week before school starts. I know a lot of people ask us, what are your chances of getting in? And the truth is, we really don't know. We don't know if what happened last year will be an indication of what will happen this year. But what we can tell you is last year at kindergarten, with the exception of one school, all families who entered the first or second lottery and stuck with the process were placed at their top choice school. At middle school, only a few students who were very late to the process didn't get into their first choice, and all high school students got placed in their top choice. But again, we can't guarantee that will happen for this year, but we do know that if you stick with the process, you will get into one of your top choices, if not your top choice. Okay, so just to reiterate this before I get into some other details, if you need to participate in open enrollment for every dual language immersion program, for Marshall, for the Math Academy, and for a high school academy that's not located at your school of residence. And then, of course, any school that is not your assigned school of residence. Okay, so what is a neighborhood preference? So Field, San Rafael, and Marshall do not have assigned neighborhood school, are not assigned schools. So nobody is assigned to attend Marshall, Field, or San Rafael. But what they do have is a neighborhood preference, which is an area around their school. So those schools reserve 50% of their available seats for people who live near the school. That is also true for the other dual language immersion programs at Altadena, Jackson, and Longfellow. So 50% of the available seats go to families who live within a neighborhood preference zone. And I'll be honest, I can't tell you exactly what that preference zone is. At one time, it was just a half mile. I believe it is a larger area than that now. But most families who are in that preference zone will get a placement unless there's a large number of students living in your neighborhood. And if that's the case and not all the students get placed during that preferential period, you will be entered into the regular lottery. So you'll actually get two chances to get into the school. You do not need to indicate on your open enrollment application that you live in the neighborhood preference. The system will automatically be able to identify you based on your neighborhood. So again, you'll get that first neighborhood preference choice, and then if for some reason you don't get placed, you'll be put into the regular lottery for another option. Okay, so how many seats will be available? We don't know that yet. Projections are based on enrollment trends, historical information, the number of siblings who enroll. They will be a range of seats, so you'll see things like 5 to 10 seats, 10 to 20 seats. So there'll be some range of seats that are available. And then that number will be reevaluated during the second lottery based on how many students from the first lottery registered. So adjustments are always made at that time. Again, we encourage you to stay in for the second lottery because families who stick with the process typically get one of their top choices. What do you need to register? These are the documents that you'll need, and you will do this online. You can upload these documents. It's all listed on PUSD's website, and we will also have a copy of this presentation on our website. So, so you can upload your documents, and that's how you register. Okay, so I'm also going to mention priority and sibling registration. That has already passed for this year. That took place October 24th to November 14th. But I want you to know about this for the future. If you have another child who will be coming into the system, they will get priority registration. And if your child is in a special program, they will get priority registration when they matriculate from 5th to 6th grade and 8th to 9th grade. So be sure to stay aware of those dates. They happen pretty quickly. But if you miss them, then you will not get preferential treatment. If you call and you say, we missed sibling registration, can we register our sibling now? You won't be able to do that. You'll have to go through open enrollment. Keep in mind that this is an important part of the enrollment process. Now, we're also asked a lot what happens if you live outside of PUSD's boundaries, because there are many families who want to attend a PUSD school or program and don't live in Pasadena, Altadena, or Sierra Madre. If you want to attend a school, then you can submit a request for an interdistrict permit starting March 27th. You do not need to be released from your home district prior to being accepted in PUSD. Once you are accepted, then you'll be able to request a release from your home district. City of Pasadena or PUSD residents, City of Pasadena employees or PUSD employees who live outside of Pasadena, Altadena, or Sierra Madre can participate in the regular open enrollment period. They do not need to wait until March to participate. And if you need more information, here are some important links, websites, and you can contact Susan, Laura, or myself, and we can also help you. Only other thing I'm going to mention is that we have been asked about what happens if your student has an IEP, which is an individual education plan. There is no priority for that. This is still a random lottery, But if you indicate on your application that your child has an IEP, staff will make sure that you are placed at a school that has the services that your student will need. And I'm going to leave this up for a little bit. And if there are questions, we can try to answer them for you.
So, Nancy, there was one question in the chat that I wanted to just call up. It was specifically asking in the case of families with foster children who may be placed with them after the open enrollment process is done. Are there any options for them? And I guess the same would apply if there was someone who moved into to Pasadena after that open enrollment process is closed to apply for a dual language program or for any specific program outside of their assigned school.
So if you miss the first lottery and the second lottery, you can go to the enrollment office at PUSD and submit an application for the other schools. Now, some of the schools may have wait lists already, which would mean you'd be put to the end of the wait list. But other schools might not, and they'll be able to tell you whether you could just enroll at another school or whether you could be placed on a wait list and then find out whether you got it before the school year begins. So there are options after the first and second lottery if you miss those dates.
Okay, we have another question, which is, do neighborhood preference applicants apply for open enrollment in that same January window? And the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
So.
Yes. So like I live in the Marshall neighborhood. If I was looking to enroll my children at Marshall, then I would submit my open enrollment application, put Marshall as my first choice. And the system would read that as a neighborhood preference school. So yes, you apply during the regular open enrollment period and put your neighborhood preference school as your first choice in order for that to be identified.
Okay, so there's a question that just came in. What happens if you've already registered to your school of residence but are possibly interested in open enrollment for a magnet or a special program otherwise? So I want to just clarify to the person who asked that question. Are we talking about you have already, since December 1st, you're already registered for next year at your school of residence? And you can just unmute and say yes or no. Yes. Okay. All right. So Nancy, do you want to, are you?
So you've already registered for next year. And you want to go and you want to, oh, that's a good question. I think once you're registered, you cannot participate in open enrollment. So you may need to contact your school, the school where you registered, and let them know that you don't want to do that. But if you remember to email me, I can double check that for you. But I'm pretty sure once you're registered, you cannot participate in open enrollment. And the same thing would be if you got placed into your first choice school and then decided you really wanted your second choice school, and you can't undo that.
Right. I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions that I missed here. I think so. Oh, so there was a question earlier, which I think I understood what the answer was, but we'll share it with everybody. If for those schools like Altadena Arts that don't have a TK, if that's your school of residence, do you just automatically get assigned to another TK as and just go in and register there as if it were your school of residence? Or do you have to go through open enrollment if you want TK and your school of residence doesn't have a TK?
I'm not sure. Do you know the answer to that?
I'm trying to think, because what's changed since, just for everybody's information, it used to be that TK was not part of open enrollment and now it is. So, I mean, I think.
It used to be you would be assigned to a different school for TK.
Right, right. So we can double check on that. But I think, you would certainly have the option of doing an open enrollment application and saying, and ranking the TK's programs in order of preference, just as you would if you were going into kindergarten or a higher grade. But we will check on that. Let's see, I've got some new messages here. Okay, so if you are a City of Pasadena employee and don't live in the Pasadena area, do you still submit an inter-district permit request in March?
No, you go through regular open enrollment.
Right. Now, I guess the question though is, do they need to actually then request a release from their district in that situation?
I'm not sure about that, but I assume not, because they are working in Pasadena.
Yeah. Now,
I mean,
be very clear about this. You have to actually be employed by a city of Pasadena or one of its agencies. So if you're
a PCC employee, that does not count as a city employee. We've been asked that a number of times.
And I suppose a city of Sierra Madre as well, right? I mean, or county or something another public agency. It really is the city of Pasadena, right?
Yes.
Specifically. Okay, another question. What if I only apply to one school, but later on I change my mind and decide I want to add a second choice? I can answer that one. You do really need to think about what your choices, what choices you would be willing to consider other than your neighborhood school, what choices you would prefer to your neighborhood school. So you want to put, think about what your first choice is. But if you didn't get that choice, would you be happy to just then go to your neighborhood school, or would you want to have some other choices? So you kind of need to think about that when you fill out your application in January.
Yeah, because you can't change your application once it's submitted, unless it's during that window. I mean, if it's still during the open enrollment application window, you can go in and change it. But once that window is passed, you can't change your application.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, so you kind of have to think about both which schools you would prefer to your neighborhood school, if any, and in what order, because you can't change the order either.
Right.
That's if you got your first choice and then said, oh, but I really think my third choice was my first choice. There isn't really a way to do that in the process. Can you clarify who is eligible for TK? Yes, we can. So if your child is 5, turns 5 by September 1st. Oh, she's going back to the slides. Perfect. Then you are eligible for kindergarten. I think the only thing that's confusing about this slide is it's for transitional kindergarten for the 2023-24 school year. Your child would need to be turning 5 years old between September 2nd of 2023 and April 2nd of 2024.
Oh, did I mess that up? Whoopsie.
No, you just have the 1 year on there, so it's that may be a little bit confusing. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if you can change it. So if your child is turning 5 anytime between September 2nd of next year and April 2nd of 2024, then the
Oh,
child is eligible
whoops.
for TK for the whole 2023-24 school year, all of next school year, starting in August. So we'll correct that when we send out the notes. I am just going to take the opportunity to put a couple of links in the chat when we're finished. If you have time or if you need to leave a little bit earlier, we really appreciate your feedback. So we have a link to a program evaluation survey, and we have one link in English and one in Spanish. It's a very short survey, but we really value your feedback. So, okay, what schools are currently offering TK? I heard San Rafael might be. San Rafael, Altadena, and what was the other one? Sierra
Sierra
Madre?
Madre.
Are not going to be offering TK, and it's really has to do with the facility, the space available on the campus. There just isn't room for it, so that's. Okay, can I add it in the second lottery? Okay. I don't think you can add anything to your application. So the question is, can I add another choice in the second lottery? Follow up to the first question. No. If you go through the first lottery, you have to list all the choices that you might be interested in. If you continue to the second lottery, you can't change anything about your application. The schools that you picked and the order that they're in just carries over from the first lottery. You don't have an opportunity to modify that application. I'm seeing the question, are San Marino and Sierra Madre schools included in PUSD? Sierra Madre is part of Pasadena Unified, along with Pasadena and Altadena. San Marino is a separate school district, so not part of PUSD. It's its own school district. Okay, yeah, we will make a correction on the slide for the eligibility dates for TK, and we will. I've not put this in the chat, but we will be sending out a follow-up email to everyone who is on the call, and also anybody else who signed up for the call but wasn't able to make it tonight. And we will include all the updated slides, the recording, and it's already corrected. My goodness. Any additional links that would be useful. So we will look for that email. And if you are joining this call but didn't sign up on our website, if you didn't already register, if you could put your email in the chat, we'll be sure to add you to our email list as well. Are all TK programs all day? Other school districts have half days. Here, all the TK programs are full day programs. It's the same schedule as the elementary school.
Oh, the other thing I'd like to add too is that we have been asked in the past about the preschool programs and whether there is a priority for TK or kindergarten if you're at a school's pre-K program. And there is not a priority for pre-K. So if you're in the if there's a Spanish pre-K program or the Mandarin pre-K program, you do not get priority for the TK program.
Or for kindergarten.
Or for kindergarten, correct.
Good questions, you guys. Anything else? We will, what we do when we have a program, we will make sure that you're on our mailing list. If you're not already, we'll add you to our mailing list to get our bulletin that comes out once a week, usually Sunday evening during the school year. And that way you'll get a heads up about when the dates are coming up for the lottery and for the applications and links, and all the information will be sort of there at your fingertips. Okay, so here's a question. Is signing up for preschool something different? Yes, it is. The preschool, The early childhood education preschool programs through Pasadena Unified are registering for that or applying for those spaces is separate and different from this TK through 12 enrollment process. And let's see. So when I send out the follow-up email, I will send a link to that that webpage so you can have more information about that. Okay, is there priority if you're in a dual immersion TK to go into dual immersion kindergarten program? Nancy.
Yes, there is. So if you are at Field in the Mandarin TK program, you can stay at Field for kindergarten. You do not need to go through open enrollment. If you are at Webster in the Armenian program for TK, you can continue to kindergarten at Webster. If you are in the Spanish TK program, because it is only at one site for TK, but for kindergarten, there are 3 sites. You are guaranteed admission to one of the 3 sites, but you do need to participate in open enrollment in order to get placed at one of the 3 sites. Now, this year, TK for Spanish is at Jefferson. So all students who are at Jefferson TK need to participate in open enrollment, and on their application, put all 3 of the elementary Spanish DLIP programs, that be Jackson, San Rafael, and Longfellow, in the order that you want to be placed in them. Next year, the TK program for Spanish will be at Longfellow. So if you want to stay at Longfellow, you will not need to go through open enrollment. But if you want to go to Jackson or San Rafael, or your 3rd choice would be Longfellow, then again, you go through open enrollment and you would put all 3 schools in order to guarantee a placement for Spanish kindergarten. There is no French TK.
Right. Looking at a question here. Okay, after all students from the neighborhood and open enrollment got into their schools, will there be any chance for people outside of PUSD who are coming via interdistrict transfer?
Yes, if there's space. So it's, yeah, I mean, you would have to request an interdistrict permit at the end of March. And if you wanted to go to a school that had space, then you would have to get released from your current home district. And if you wanted one of the special programs, it would just depend if there was space available.
Yeah, and there certainly are a lot of people who come into PUSD schools from out of district. So it's a
Yeah.
we can't guarantee results. We can't say for sure what it will be, but it is certainly, there are openings available for quite a few of the programs to people coming in from out of district.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people have asked about Field in particular with the Mandarin program, and quite a number of the families in that program are from out of district. And as long as they submitted their applications as soon as they could and didn't wait till August to try to get in, most families were able to get placed at the school that they wanted.
Do results go out electronically to everyone at the same time? As far as I know, they do. Yes.
And if you ever have a question about it, you can either contact us and we can reach out to the enrollment office, or you can contact the enrollment office directly. They're pretty receptive. And again, this year, the way that the open enrollment website is working for families, you will have an opportunity to click on messages and see what what was sent in case you missed something.
Another out-of-district, inter-district transfer question, is there typically space available for Spanish TK via inter-district transfer? This is really the first or the second year that we've actually had TK as part of open enrollment.
Yeah,
So
I don't know that we know that yet.
I guess is yes, but we don't know. We don't really have any typically yet.
Yeah, this was the first year, so I don't really know what that will look like.
If I had to take a guess, I'm going to guess that there's a good chance of it, but that's a guess. So they have a question about Marshall. So if somebody has neighborhood preference and you want to exercise that preference and try to get into that school and it's your first choice, then you need to list that school as your first choice. And then based on your address, you will be eligible for the neighborhood preference. If that school isn't your first choice, then you should list your first choice first. It's meant to be simple, not complicated. So if there's a different school that is your first choice, even though you have neighborhood preference for a school, you should list your first choice first. Now that means that you're not exercising your neighborhood preference to get into that school. You could list it as a second choice. So in the case of Marshall, you would need to, because it's a lottery only school, you would list it as your second choice, not your first choice. If it were your neighborhood school, you wouldn't list it at all because you don't list your neighborhood school in the lottery application. Did that make sense? But basically the short takeaway is list your first choice first. And that's really good, simple advice.
Yeah, I know over the years, people have asked us, well, is there like a numbers game and percentages that if I put this school first, I have a better chance of getting in? And once the district changed the system so that you can list every school, as many schools as you want, there is no way to like smart the system. So yeah, put your first choice first. And again, if you stick with the process, there's a good chance you will get in.
All right. So we are right at 8 o'clock. I'm gonna just type our links to our program evaluation surveys one more time in the chat. Again, we really appreciate you taking just a couple minutes to give us some feedback. And we can stick around a little bit longer if people have other questions.
Right, is that it then, Susan? Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Again, we can hang around a little bit if you've got more questions, or feel free to contact us, and hopefully we'll see you in person soon and you'll be part of our PUSD and Penn family.
Yay.